basically what is happening is our lawmakers realize that pensions are a thing of the past. Social Security is maybe not what it used to be. And folks that are my age or younger than my age, retirement's on their shoulders and they maybe don't know that. And those people got to start saving money. And so we're trying to help them out as much as we can here by increasing awareness, making some things happen automatically, different things like that.
We've been doing this for 20 years and serving hundreds of families. We're going to bring solutions to your situation.
How do you choose a financial advisor? How do you know who you should
That's
work with?
the value of that 210 core, of moving everything towards a purpose on purpose.
Hey everybody, welcome to your Retirement Blueprint podcast. It's the solo edition. It may be the one and only. We'll see. Mr. Phil Cooper couldn't make it today, but that's all right. We'll carry it on along without him. My name's Kendall Stahl, if you didn't already know. Finally settling into the beginning of the year. Had lots of travels going on. We're getting into the first quarter, and I'm excited because I finally am getting back in a routine. Hopefully all you are too. I know there's always travels and family and things like that around the first part of the year. Celebrated my son's 5th birthday. We had tons of fun. He's growing up way too quick. I don't know. We tried to take him to the babysitter today and he didn't really want to do that. He said he wanted to come to the office. So maybe next time I'll bring him in and he'll be our guest on our podcast. We'll see. Anyways, today we're going to talk about new legislation that's been put out. All kinds of tax changes coming along that I think a lot of our listeners and viewers need to be aware of. So we're going to walk through that. But first, for those of you that have listened for some time, you know that we always start out with a question of the day. And today we get a question from Bill from Lakin, and he wants to know, how much risk should I have in my retirement? So I think what he probably means there is in his accounts, his retirement accounts. Or he may mean in his retirement years. So I'll try to answer that. That's a good question, by the way, Bill. I'll try to answer that kind of in a general, broad brushstrokes. But when it comes to risk, our firm, we always measure that kind of on a scale from 1 to 99. So 1's like cash in the bank, meaning the market can't take it away from you. The market goes up or down. If you have a risk score of 1, those dollars are going to stay the same, right? And then 99, that's as risky as you can get. So you can put some sort of penny stock or something like that, maybe Bitcoin or, cryptocurrency, something like that up there at 99. And then for a reference point for all of you out there, just the stock market, the S&P 500 or the Dow Jones Industrial Average, those are going to come in at risk score right around 75. Okay. And so what that means is that in the good years, like 2021, if you have a risk score of 75, it's probably going to feel pretty darn good. But in the years that are a little rougher, like 2022, those years, it's going to hurt pretty bad. 2008, I think if you had a risk score of 75, you went backwards to the low, somewhere around 40 or 50%, right? And so then from there, it swung all the way back up. So all it means is how much volatility you're going to have in your accounts. And we got to understand what's right for you and your personal situation. So Bill, I don't know a lot about you, so I'm answering this real general. But a simple rule of thumb is if you take the number 100 minus your age, Bill, you didn't tell me how old you are, but let's just say you're 60. So 100 minus 60, the answer is 40. Whatever that answer is in your scenario is kind of where you should be at on that scale from 1 to 99. So if Bill's 60 years old, generally speaking, broad brushstrokes, I want to see his accounts come in at a score of somewhere around 40. Now, that is just a rule. It's not a law that we have to follow to a T, right? And so areas that we can break it. For instance, we have a lot of clients that have pensions and social securities. In other words, income coming in that is more than enough for them to live on. And so the dollars that they've saved in their retirement accounts, they don't necessarily need that on a monthly or annual basis to pay the bills, to go on the vacations, to do things like that. And so those folks maybe can take some more risk because frankly, if those dollars disappear, which obviously we don't want that to happen, but if they did, life probably doesn't change a lot for them because they've got the Social Security and the pension coming in every month, and they can continue to live the life that they've been living, whether or not those dollars are bigger or smaller over here on the side that they've saved. So someone like that, if they wanted to, maybe they can take a little more risk. But if you're someone that doesn't have a pension, right? People my age are probably, most of them are not going to have pensions. If you don't have Social Security. In other words, if you need to rely on the dollars that you have saved over your lifetime in order to live off of, then you need to have a really good handle on how much risk you have inside of those accounts. So if you're an individual, Bill, where you need $5,000 a month to live on, and $2,000 of that's going to come from Social Security, and the other $3,000 you're going to have to go get from your 401k or your IRA or whatever the case may be for you, then you need to have a pretty darn good handle on how much risk you have. And so how we do that in our firm is we get the statements that you have, or I guess really what we do is we get the holdings that you have. Those are most frequently located on the statement. We put them into our system, and then that'll score those different accounts out for you from a scale of 1 to 99, and we can kind of find out where you land, Bill, or where any of you land, and talk together a little more intelligently on whether or not that's good for you in your phase of life. A couple other things to think about. When you're walking into retirement and you're going to need money to live on. So in that scenario I just gave, Bill, you got a $5,000 need, $2,000 is coming from Social Security. You need to get $3,000 out of accounts somewhere. You need a portion of those accounts allocated somewhere that is going to be principal protected, potentially getting reasonable rates of return, to where you don't have to be a forced seller in a down market. 2022, folks that were pulling dollars out of their accounts to live on, if they didn't have those set up correctly, they were what I call a forced seller in a down market, which simply means you have to sell things at a low every month for you to get those dollars to live on. That's not a position you want to be in. So if you're in that position, we need to look into it. If you're walking into retirement, we need to make sure you don't get yourself in that position. All right. So, Bill, thanks for your question. A really good question. Hopefully that helps in some way. If you would like more information on that, give us a call or check us out, and we can do the best that we can to help you with that. Okay, so now we're going to change gears a little bit. We're going to get into the main topic today, and I got a lot of notes on that. And towards the end of 2022, we have this thing called the Secure Act 2.0 come out. And so that is changes in a lot of the tax laws coming up, either now or the next years in the future. If you remember the Trump administration, love them or hate them, they changed, I don't really care if you love them or hate them, it's just the fact that they changed the tax laws for most Americans, and that was called Secure Act. And I think that was in 2019, I think, is when they did that. But anyways, now we've got Secure Act 2.0 coming out, and there's a lot of changes that are going to be made. I'm going to walk through those for you guys today because I think there's a lot of important ones that you need to get your head wrapped around, or at least your advisor needs to be helping you with along the way. So we'll go from there. So the first one that I've got on my list here, it's in section 101 of the Secure Act 2.0, and I think it's a good one. And it talks about expanding automatic enrollment in retirement plans. So what does that mean? So right now, lots of people have 401ks or 403bs or simple IRAs, whatever the case may be. And in most cases, not all, but in most cases, you as an employee have to go sign up for those, right? And maybe you have maybe you're working for a company that is going to match whatever you put in there. You have to go sign up for them in order to make that start happening. And what they've found, they being, the IRS or the folks making these laws, people like us, I guess, is that a lot of people, especially lower income people or younger people, don't go sign up for those those plans. And so starting the end of 2024, so really in 2025, I guess, basically what's going to happen is Secure Act 2.0 is going to make it mandatory that once an employee becomes eligible, so your employer, so let's just pick one. Caterpillar's in our back door. Caterpillar offers a 401k, but there's some eligibility requirements, meaning you probably got to be full time. Maybe there's, you can't get it until after the first 90 days, whatever the case may be. Once those requirements are fulfilled, it's mandatory that the employer sign you up for that. In other words, if you don't want it, you have to go to the employer and say, hey, I don't want it. Okay. Whereas right now it's the other way around. If you want it, you got to go to the employer and get it. And a lot of younger people, I think of some of my sisters, right? They maybe don't understand what a 401k is. And so they don't go sign up for it. Therefore, they're giving up the company match. They're giving up the time value of money, which means, those first few years that you put dollars in, compounding interest is a huge thing. So I think it's a good thing. I think that come the beginning of 2025, having it set up that way to where the employee, if I'm the employee, I have to go to my employer and say, nope, I don't want your match and I don't want your 401k, I think is going to automatically enroll a lot of younger people or a lot of people that maybe aren't as educated about what a 401k is or what it needs to be. I think it's going to automatically enroll a lot of those people in there. I think it's going to educate a lot of people, and I think it's going to be a good thing because we talked about pension. When I was talking to Bill about his risk question, we talked about pensions a little bit, and that's just kind of a thing of the past. And so, if you go back, maybe you're 20 years old or you're 18 or maybe you're 60. If you can rewind to when you were a younger age, right? You didn't have a lot of money. You didn't have a lot of education. You didn't know that you needed to be saving dollars in that 401k or that 403b or whatever the case may be. And so you didn't do it. Actually, I have a story about that. I met with a client it's probably been, I don't know, I think it was November 2022 maybe. And he didn't know somehow that his employer was matching 401k contributions. And he had been there for 10 or 12 years, I think, maybe a little over 10 years, I believe. And so he had given up 10 years of contributions to that 401k and those employee contributions along the way. And that's substantial over a long period of time. So first one out of the box, automatic enrollment into retirement plans, essentially. And it says, it looks like it's going to have to be, they're going to automatically enroll you in at least 3% contribution to your 401k. If the company matches, then you'll start getting the match. If they don't, you won't get the match, but you'll at least start putting money in. And then it's automatically going to be set up to go up 1% each year thereafter that you set it up. The amount is to be increased by 1% until it reaches at least 10%. So you go get a job in 2025 and it offers a 401k. The employer is going to automatically start withholding 3% of your pay unless you tell them differently. And then from there, 3% is going to turn to 4% is going to turn into 5 each year until you reach 10%, obviously, unless you as the employee decide to change that. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Let's see. Next big one here is the section. There's a whole bunch of different sections in here, the whole packet of information. I'm obviously not going to hit them all. I'm just kind of hitting high level the things that I think are important. Section 103, they call it the Savers Match. Right now, if you contribute to an IRA or some sort of a retirement plan, you get a little bit of credit on your taxes. And starting not for a little while, looks like 2026, 2027 timeframe, instead of giving you that money in cash, in other words, in your tax return, they're going to require that, I don't know what it is off the top of my head, a few $100s to be put into an IRA or 401k to grow for the future. So that's kind of minor, but that's something there. Along these same lines, Section 104 directs the Treasury Department to start increasing public awareness, is how they save it, of the Savers Match program and the 401k stuff that I was talking about a minute ago. Basically, what is happening is our lawmakers realize that pensions are a thing of the past. Social Security is maybe not what it used to be. And folks that are my age or younger than my age, retirement's on their shoulders and they maybe don't know that. And those people got to start saving money. And so we're trying to help them out as much as we can here by increasing awareness, making some things happen automatically, different things like that. So I think that's good. Okay, big one here. Section 107, increase in age for required beginning date for mandatory distributions. Lots of words there. Basically, it says required minimum distribution age is getting increased, and that is actually starting this year in 2023. So for those of you that pay attention, you know that in the Secure Act 2019, the required minimum distribution age changed from 70 and a half to 72. And now Secure Act 2.0 is bumping that again. Okay, so for those of you that have not turned on required minimum distributions yet, meaning if you aren't 72 yet, the required minimum distribution age is actually going to 73, and that is starting January 1st, 2023. So that's happening now. That's one of the few that is actually happening right now, and it will increase further to the age of 75, starting not until 2033. So that's a little ways down the road. So what you need to know right now is RMD age changed to 73. So if you were planning on turning 72 in 2023, turning on required minimum distributions, you may not need to do that. Talk to your advisor or look into that a little more to decide whether or not you need to do that. That's a big one though. And then I'm going to skip forward here because there's one in the back here that kind of goes along with the required minimum distribution. Not a huge deal, but it used to be that the penalty for not taking required minimum distributions, meaning if you forgot or you just decided, hey, I don't want to take that money out of those IRAs or those 401ks, the penalty used to be 50% of whatever you're supposed to take out. So it was pretty hefty. They're reducing that penalty down to 25%. Frankly, I don't know why. I don't think that changes anything. Most people are not going to take money out of those IRAs or those 401ks and pay the 25% penalty. They're still going to take it out. But that is just one thing to know. Okay, here's another big one. Maybe I should have mentioned it earlier when we were talking about younger folks and saving money. But Section 110, treatment of student loan payments as elected deferrals for the purpose of matching contributions. Here's what it means in a nutshell. There's a whole, basically half a page on this, but this is starting basically January 1st of 2024. If you are paying on student loans, you can use that. Okay, let me back up. Let's say you're out of school, you have student loans you're paying on, but you've got a job and you have a 401k, and that 401k or that company matches in that 401k. The problem is you've got so much student loan debt that it's really hard for you to contribute to that 401k, so you're not, or maybe you're not maxing out that match. You're giving up a lot of dollars there. That company match you're not getting because you don't have the cash flow to put money into the 401k. So what this is going to do, Section 110, is if you're paying on student loan debt, they're going to basically make that look like you're contributing to a 401k. So obviously that money's not going in, but the company, if there's a match in that 401k, they're going to have to look at that student loan payment as a contribution to the 401k, and they're going to have to go ahead and put their match part in. So a little bit confusing, but basically I think the point of that is hey, we got a student loan debt issue. People are going to work. They don't have money to contribute to 401ks, IRAs, things like that. And so they're going to say, hey, if you've done your job, if you've got through school, you've got a degree, and you are off to the races, you just don't have enough cash flow because the student loans debt's taking it from you. Companies are going to have to go ahead and look at that like a contribution and go ahead and match the match into your 401k. So at least there'll be some money going into your 401k. There's a lot of disclaimers along this one, but what's a qualified student loan payment? A qualified student loan payment is broadly defined as indebtedness incurred by the employee solely to pay qualified higher education expenses of the employee. So I think it's pretty broad. But that's definitely something that could make a lot of sense for younger folks as well. Emergency withdrawal. So as most of you know, when you have dollars in 401ks or IRAs, you can't get money out without penalties. They're going to make that a little bit easier to get some dollars out. Really not a huge deal. It's only $1,000 that you can get out for some pretty broad reasons, basically family emergency expenses or personal emergency expenses, things like that. It's $1,000. It's not going to change the world, but that is something that maybe would make it a little more available. All right, let's see. What else do we have here before we run out of time? A couple of big ones. Here's a big one. Ran into this case. Actually, I'm running into it fairly frequently. So Section 126, special rules for certain distributions from long-term qualified tuition programs to Roth IRAs. A lot of words there. Here's what it means. A lot of folks have said, hey, I want to save money for my kids for college. And they've opened up what they call a 529 account. And that account is basically a tax-advantaged account to where you put money in there, you save it for school, and as long as your children or whoever has that 529 account uses that money to go to higher education, college, basically, they get those dollars out tax-free. It kind of looks like a Roth IRA when the money comes out. The problem is that what happens if you've been diligent and you've saved money for your child into that 529 plan, and your children's done very well in school, they get scholarships, they get all their school paid for, and now they got this money stuck in the 529 plan that if they take it out for anything other than educational expenses, there's penalties. Or the flip side of that, what if your child says, hey, I want to be a welder, or I want to go to a trade school, something like that, and they don't end up going to getting a top college degree, but have been very successful in life. In order to get those dollars out of those 529 plans, that's just one of the examples. There's penalties for that if it's not used for college expenses. And so I've seen it. I had a young lady in here, it's probably been half a year ago, and she's got, I don't remember, 30, 40, 50 grand inside of a 529 plan. She is very well established. She's running her own real estate company, doing some things like that. And she's like, I'm not going to use these $529. But I'm going to incur this big penalty if I take them out. What am I going to do? Well, thankfully, we didn't do anything because the answer that I had for her at the time was, you're probably going to have to take that penalty. There's no other way to get it out in her situation. And so thankfully, we didn't do anything, because now this Section 126 of Secure Act 2.0 basically amends the Internal Revenue Code to allow for tax penalty-free rollovers from a 529 account to a Roth IRA under certain conditions. Beneficiaries of a 529 college savings plan will be permitted to roll over up to $35,000 over the course of their lifetime from any 529 account to a Roth IRA. These rollovers are also subject to Roth IRA annual contribution limits, and the 529 account must have been open for more than 15 years. Okay, so there's a whole nother paragraph to some other things in here, right? But the point of the story is, folks that have money stuck in a 529 plan may have options now to get those dollars growing tax-free and to not incur any tax penalties. You're not going to be able to just roll the whole dollar amount over. It looks like you're going to be stuck to the Roth IRA contribution limits, things like that. You're going to have had that 529 plan for 15 years or more. But the point is, that's actually, I think, a big one that I've seen and I've run into lately, people getting money stuck in 529 plans, okay? It also may give the person, someone like me that's saving money for my kids, or if you're older, someone that's saving money for their grandkids, that may give them some more peace of mind to say, hey, let's take advantage of the tax code. Let's put money to 529, and it'll be used perfectly tax-wise for higher education. But if my kids or my grandkids or whoever it is doesn't end up going to that higher education, they've got an out. There's a way to get those dollars going in a different direction. So I think that one's super beneficial as well. A whole bunch of other things in here before I run out of time. Let's see here. This one's a little off the wall, but it'll make sense to a few people. Firefighters, right? So firefighters. Well, let me back up. If you have a 401k, there's this thing called a rule of 55. And the rule of 55 says this. If you retire from your employer at the age of 55 or older, you can get dollars out of your most recent 401k without any pre-59.5 penalties. Okay? That's any employer. So there's this 55 rule. You got to be at least 55 before you retire, and then you can get dollars out of that most recent 401k if you'd like, and avoid penalty. Okay? Firefighters, in the public sector, that age is actually 50 for them, but all the firefighters in the private sector, it's always been the age 55 still. So basically, they're leveling the playing field on that, and all firefighters are going to be able to get dollars out after the age of 50 in order without any penalty, as long as they retired after the age of 50 and taking those dollars out. Okay, last one here before we wrap up. Retirement savings lost and found. This is section 303. So I think the last one I said was like section 120 something, and I skipped to clear it down to 303. So the point is there's a lot more in here. But retirement savings lost and found, run into this all the time. I sit down with a client and I'm like, what all do you got going on? Here's 401k, here's your IRA. And I know it may sound silly to some of you, but people lose those things. They went to work for 2 years at XYZ job, and then they bounced to this other job earlier there in the career, and they had these little couple $3,000 accounts spread out around at their old employers, and they didn't know any better at the time, and they kind of just let those things go. And then that company sells to another, which sells to another, and pretty soon you're like, where in the world? I know I've got an old 401k. I don't know where it's at. And there's this whole detective research mission you got to put on to go find it. And section 303 is saying, hey, we need to make some sort of database to where we can track those down. You can go put your name or your social into a website somewhere, and it can pull up, here's all the accounts that possibly could have been you in your name in the past. So there's I don't know what the website's called, but there's different websites out there that you can go put your name into to see if there's any inheritances that you should have gotten or that you're missing or things like that. I think what they're aiming for is to kind of have that same thing with the retirement accounts. So that one, I believe, let's see, it says 2 years after this needs to be up and running. Yeah, section 303 directs the creation of the database no later than 2 years after the enactment of this act. So basically 2 years from, so we're looking at 2025-ish, basically. Okay, probably enough boring tax information for the day, but I hope that helps. I think the biggest takeaways from this would be for my clients or for my listeners or viewers that are in retirement or getting close to retirement, the required minimum distribution age is changing again and will be changing more. One thing we also didn't talk about is contribution limits to 401ks, 403bs, simple IRAs, different things like that. Those contribution limits, a lot of them are going to be getting indexed to inflations and things like that, which is something we haven't seen in the past. There's also some additional catch-up rules inside of there, so you may be able to save money at a faster pace into retirement accounts. But then, like we mentioned, those required minimum distribution ages are changing. Make sure we understand how that impacts your plan, what needs to happen there along the way. For my younger savers out there that are listening to this, know that if you get a new job, you're probably going to get automatically enrolled to a 401k, which I think is a good thing. You're going to have to go to that employer and say, I don't want to be partaking in that 401k. If you're contributing to an IRA, you're getting a tax credit. That tax credit may have to go into an IRA in the coming years. Anyways, a lot of changes. Stay on top of them. Make sure you understand them. Things like that. All right. So that is a quick glance at Secure Act 2.0. Hopefully that helps. Obviously, if you have questions or concerns, reach out to us. Most of that information I discussed is something that could change, but everything I talked about is what I've taken off of the Secure Act. Obviously, it's always subject to change, though. All right. Now, we always wrap up our show with this week in history. So, 1901, the Automobile Club installs highway signs. So basically, we started getting those highway signs in 1901. 1964, Panama breaks ties with the U.S. Revision of Canal Treaty. And then here's a good one. I think a lot of people will understand what this means. 1953, the song "Hit Me with Your Best Shot" is sung at the Grammys and becomes a winning hit. So there you go. This week in history. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. That was some information about risk in retirement and then Secure Act 2.0. We'll see you next time right here on your Retirement Blueprint podcast. Can't wait for our next show. See you soon.